real life, I guess.
Okay. So, in order to introduce this topic, one of the reasons that I even suggested or that we suggested this topic is because it's so disheartening sometimes when you're in the middle of personal development and you're working and you're working and your family doesn't want anything to do with it. It can be so depressing. And your spouse and your partner and your kids don't want you to be toxic positive. And so they're telling you all over the place, Dad, don't talk to me about this. Neil, don't talk to me about this. Neil, you shouldn't be doing this at work. Neil, you shouldn't be doing this at church. There's all of these places that they tell you, oh, you shouldn't talk about anything, anywhere that's positive. And that's just one of the areas of depression and frustration and anxiety and anger that can happen when you're working on personal development.
So let me rephrase if I understood correctly what you wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you call, I mean, you're talking about the environment and telling you not to talk about like the good things or the bad things, because I heard the term positive toxicity, something like this.
Yeah. Well, it's it's the idea that you shouldn't always look for deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't believe that you have control. You shouldn't believe that you have responsibility in your life. And a lot of this comes from people who don't want to take responsibility in their own life. And so they get really frustrated. Or my experience is they've gotten really frustrated when I've said, no, I am 100% responsible. If it happens in my life, I made it happen.
Okay, so you're talking when you're responsible for feeling good or feeling bad. So you're taking responsibility for that part, you mean?
Hmm. Yeah. Or the things that happen to you, the relationships that happen to you. It's all part of uh, uh, the law of attraction. You bring about what you think about. So if you think about negative things, you bring about negative things. It's just a law.
I I agree and I disagree because
Mhm.
because I think that the law of attraction, it's correct, but it goes deeper than that. And uh,
Okay.
it sometimes can be true, but I think it's not always accurate because there are some parts of us we are not really in control of. And but what we're trying to do with personal development is getting aware of those parts.
Yeah.
And I remember, and what you talked about previously about that toxic positivity, I think the first years of personal development, you're okay, I have to be positive, everything's going great. Even if I'm a bit sad, no, it's okay. I'm gonna take charge, take control. And this is also
Mhm.
what I used to do when I started that journey. And then comes a point because the universe is perfect. And like you say, the law of attraction, and because you have been, I think, emitting a certain frequency, you have been giving out some vibes that I want to feel good, I want to think positive, but hey, there is something underneath. So at some point, I think it's really get out. And I think that this is also what we talked about last week privately, and because we haven't been seeing each other for a few weeks, but we met in person, which was great.
Yeah.
And um, there was a period where you couldn't go live, and I couldn't either. And I was actually not feeling that good. And I said, oh, Neil, I don't want to affect your vibe. I'm not feeling great. And I'm not sure if that's good to share. And so that was the idea. I think there's always that guilt in personal development or in life in general to talk about those negative feelings, about that sadness, that anxiety, where you don't know where it comes from. So that's how it resonates for me. What do you think about all that?
So I see a personal therapist, a licensed professional counselor, and one of the things that he said to me really has stuck with me over the years. And he said, Neil, positive people are the ones who get the most depressed and the most angry. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, think about it. Optimists, as opposed to realists or pessimists. Realists and pessimists, hey, what happens, happens. It's going to be terrible. Pessimists, especially, it's all going to be terrible. We're going to have car accidents. We're going to die. We're going to do all these terrible things. But optimists believe in something better. We believe that life can be joyful and happy and loving and kind. But then we get frustrated, angry, and depressed because I'm not always on a high, and I'm not always in the flow, and I'm not always happy and joyful, and I don't always have $1 billion in the bank account. There are days when I only have $500,000. It's so sad.
And though you say that, but when you're an optimistic person, when you're that person, I think you don't really share those thoughts. You have them inside of you, like you said, you're angry, you're sad, you're frustrated, but you don't show those feelings. And what you just said made me think of a person. It was when I was a student. It must have been like, yeah, 10 years ago. And I remember there was always that she was kind, always smiling. She would always help you. And then I had a discussion, and I also learned a little bit more about her life. And my gosh, she went through so much, and she never shows it. Nobody, I didn't, of course, we're just colleagues, and this hit me that exactly that. Those people that are always smiling, we don't even ask them how they are. Say, okay, she must be fine. No,
Yeah.
see? And
Mhm. Yeah. You simply assume. They've put on the show for so long that you don't even question anymore. How are you? And I guess the reality is, or in my mind, I think back to Byron Katie. Byron Katie, loving what is. The simple fact is, we've all got stuff going on. We aren't perfect. We don't always have the positive thing. Even Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, they regularly tell the story of Esther got hit by a car,
mhm.
and she wanted so badly to say, well, it was their fault. It was their fault. And Abraham chimed in and said, no, it really wasn't. You were thinking about it. You allowed it into your field. And then years later, she said, you know what? I haven't had a car accident in years because I just don't think that way anymore. And so we really are responsible for what happens to us, and we really are attracting what happens to us. But when you get into personal development, you learn that you think, oh, I should just be in control of my thoughts all the time. Good luck.
Yes. And I would even go further and ask, why do we think like that? And I think, of course, we have that world of personal development, but I guess it comes from those societal norms that you always have to be perfect, not show anything. And yes, always that control. And I also guess this really occurred to me those past few weeks, because I feel like this, the first thing that comes up is shame, guilt. What's happening? Because I've been doing so much, I've been working so much on myself. What the heck? Why is this still happening? It shouldn't be happening. And the other day, I came across a video of one of my former coaches, and she talks about her life, but also what she does with her clients, and how many blind spots we have, and that wounds can just show up, like years later, and they have to show up. And another thing is, in order to really get in that area of control, I don't think we can be in control all the time, but you have to go really deep and even dark to be able to go even higher. Because
Yeah.
a last thing that I noticed those past weeks is that I would go really deep and really, really sad and dark. And then the next days, I would be in such a good vibe. And it's like I could see myself going out of that frequency, observe it. And then if it happens again, it's easier and easier to look at it. You don't say, oh, I'm diving again, and say, okay, let's dive. And have you ever experienced that?
Yes, yes. And in fact, one of the things that I think of is on a heartbeat machine, you've got ups and you've got downs, and you've got ups and you've got downs. So we really, and here's the other thing, we don't want it to be flat, do we?
Yeah, that's true.
And so really what it is releasing, and I like what you said, guilt and shame. I've been there. I've felt that. Oh no, I'm doing something wrong because I'm I'm supposed to be happy all the time. I'm supposed to be tapped in, tuned in, turned on. And today I just feel like turning off, tuning out, and going to sleep. I I think that's so normal. Even I would imagine that even Bob Proctor had bad hair days.
Yes, of course. But I'm wondering whether he talks a lot about this or not, because I would say that his teachings are really about the mind and how the mind can take the control back, take over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is so it's really useful when you are like me, with a mind, really, I'm really in control with the mind and the mental plane. But I think
Yep.
then you need to do really the shadow work, the healing, the subconscious mind, because some people are ready and can use the teachings directly. But then if you haven't done the work on the parts you cannot see of the subconscious mind, can we really see it entirely? I don't think so. But there is a point where you need to go more into an emotional type of work, and with therapists or coaches or people that can see. And this is where relationships come into the game, I think, because there comes a point when you cannot really see your patterns. And just like friends can show you, you can show me, my partner can show me, but alone, you cannot see them.
You're absolutely correct. In fact, I'm going through a situation right now where, um, well, I'll start back a little ways. Last summer, I was last March, April, I was flying high. I was having the best experience of my life. I was making decisions at work. The law of attraction and manifestation was working perfectly. I was on top of my game. Then I had a bad day and I complained to someone in May, the first part of May. And
May or March?
May, because after April. So March and April, I was doing great.
Mm-hmm.
May, I complained to somebody about just little things at work. And by June, I was suicidal. I was literally, I didn't just want to quit my job. I wanted to quit life because I was so upset and I was so angry because the things that I had set in motion in March and April were just almost falling apart. But the reason that they fell apart is because I needed to see a pattern in my life of attracting, controlling people and not giving myself the love that I needed. And so I opened myself up to the manipulation and the narcissism of other people. And that ruined my life for a couple of months. And so I've been crawling back out of that pit, but it's it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey now that I'm on the other side of the valley. I'm climbing back up the peak, and it makes sense now why I hit that valley.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, for some reason, you had to go there. And so there is a bigger plan we cannot see. And even
Oh, yeah.
those societal thoughts, we don't talk about those, but I think every human being on that planet must have felt a bit like this at some point. And even we use the big word depression, even without really being diagnosed with depression. I think we all have those depression states from
Yeah.
time to time. And especially during that time in the world where so many things are changing, where you can see the world is just upside down. People are, well, yeah, it's really upside down. And I guess it's reflecting also what we have. People always say in that specific area of personal development and spirituality that the world we see is the world we attract. So if today we have chaos, we have war, we have famine, well, we are the ones to blame. Even though there are many, many actors, it's the
Oh, yeah.
reflection of the internal chaos.
It is. It really is. And what's more, so one of the things that Bob Proctor has said is that we are the confluence of all of our ancestors' trash. So all of the unresolved emotions, fears, angers, they're flowing through our subconscious. And so we're reacting to them. We're having to deal with them. We're having to resolve them.
And you see, so yeah, I think it's a really interesting point because you're talking about past generations. And I think that today, the people, the adults, the children, the teenagers, and I can see it with when I teach those younger generations, I can see how we are facing what our parents, our grandparents, our grandparents couldn't face. Not because also it was not something that was common uh, in those times. That put it like this, they had to survive. But all the traumas that they just, well, it's piled up, and we are the ones being, okay, now it has to go out. And this is why maybe it's all about the childhood. Well, it's because, yeah, childhood, past generations, it all comes out now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. So you're absolutely right. I'm listening to Healing Your Inner Child meditations on a regular basis. I'm listening to um, individuation meditations, how to separate myself from needing to be codependent on somebody else. I am healing. I'm working really hard on Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. All of these things are about forgiveness in order to break that pattern, to break that cycle.
I just wanna, when you talk about codependency, I find that interesting because when we hear that, it's like a relationship is good when there's no attachment. You don't have to be dependent on the other and be that in every relationship. And at the same time, um, if you look at it, where do the traumas come from? It came from relationships. And then you try to get away from relationships. And is that really true? Are human beings made to be really that independent? A human, just like you said, a baby alone does not survive. So I think something fishy under that. I'm sorry, but I really don't agree with that.
Well, so here's the thing. Humans are made to be in relationship. If you go back to the Bible, it's God created Adam, and then God realized, oh, shoot, he can't be alone. So he created Eve. And you said it earlier. We need relationships in order to see ourselves. And I can't remember who it was who said it, but they said we are able, there are roughly 15 million bits of information that come in every second. Our brains can only handle 40. So we filter out all of those others and only get the 40 that we are most familiar with because they're inside ourselves. So that person who was causing me so much anguish and heartache last year, she may have been saying a million other things, and I only picked up on the 40 that affected my wounds. My wife is the same way. My children are the same way. So, as you said, shadow work, anything that I find most irritating in somebody else, that's something I need to work on.
Yes, true. And maybe what we could say is that, of course, you need to be independent. And I see that you need to know who you are, exactly knowing what triggers you, why does it trigger you, to realize, okay, so I'm healing. And when you do that, you get to know yourself better and better. And you start also loving those parts because you realize it's not really your fault. Because in terms of guilt, I think it's an important part. We feel ashamed of what we feel, what we are, why are we triggered, and only by saying okay. And like you say, the inner child, I think, because it's true. It's I had well, my partner, I remember he showed me when I started my healing journey, he always carries with him a picture of himself when he was a little boy, you know? And so you
Mm-hmm.
can be kinder to yourself because something like, oh, yeah, I'm a perfectionist, things like that, and bumma, and you're really judging yourself and you're hurting yourself over and over again when you try to heal. It's not working. See? And so it's really about being kinder to yourself and acknowledging, yeah, there is another part of me. And it's because you've said, no, that part is not me, that it hurts. Because you need to
Yeah.
accept, oh, I'm also that little girl that needs, love, attention, and feeling seen and heard. And yeah, and that's
Yeah. Louise Hay had an exercise where she said 300 to 400 times a day, say, I accept myself. And another one she's was famous for is look in the mirror and say, I love you. And that's hard for some people.
I can honestly, and it depends. It works with some people, but I really am not a fan of that because uh and I heard someone say, well, because if you cannot feel it, truly feel it, like positively, you will just reinforce the weird feeling. So it's better to try and feel it than repeating it over and over again.
You bring up a really, really important point. Just saying words is not enough.
No.
It goes back to Neville Goddard. The feeling is the secret. If you can't feel it, if you can't feel your affirmations, if you can't feel your positive self-talk, then you're right. It's not going to work. It doesn't matter how many times you use your prayer beads or say the same thing. If you're just saying it from rote memorization, it's not going to work.
And it's just like, because I use that when I teach languages, is you want to learn a language. And I say, of course, the subconscious mind can be changed with repetition or shock therapy. Of course, the shock is the trauma. We won't go there. So you have to listen to the language, talk the language, and study and really dive into the language. But you can do it. But some people, they can dive into the language. They can listen to hours and hours and hours. Nothing will happen, because they are doing it just because the teacher said you have to do it, and not because they want to do it. Not, you see, there's no connection here.
Honestly, that's why I don't speak Spanish as well as I would like to, and why I can still remember Russian. I lived in Russia. I had to learn Russian in order to survive. I can go to Mexico and I'll still be okay, even if my Spanish isn't very good at all. I can use Google Translate and I can use, that stuff. I don't have to know it.
No.
But when I was in Russia, I did. That was trauma.
There was a real need, and
Yeah.
you wanted, it was forced desire. No, I don't know, but you were there for a mission, and the mission was important to you, so you transferred that desire onto
learning the language.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so I agree with you. You're right. You cannot look in the mirror and just say, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you.
Yeah,
I love you. I think you're great. I think you're special. Wow, what a great, spectacular person you are.
Yeah, sorry, but this is such. Yeah.
But I have enough babies that I know what it feels like to look at a baby and say, you are so perfect. You've just spilled your peas, pooped your diaper, and done something else, but you're absolutely perfect. You're experiencing this world. Why would I ever yell at you, spank you, call you names? And yet we do that to ourselves all the time.
Because that's, I think, really the inheritance of, the past generations, and because they couldn't do, they were doing their best. And I think this is also a part I'm dealing with, is sometimes because now you are dealing with all those internal things, and you say, but why did the past generation not do anything, or why did they do that? And even though okay, we have reincarnated and we were okay with that, well, there is still a part when you're angry and sad, and and as long as you feel that anger and that sadness, I think the healing process cannot be fully completed, I guess.
Yeah. Well, until Byron Katie, she described it best when she said, I meet the thought where it is, I accept the thought, and then the thought releases me. I don't release the thought releases me. The emotion, the trauma, the ancestral baggage will release us when we can accept it.
And this is where currently I watch a lot of Arwen de la Réau's videos. She's a French, let's say a French teacher, spiritual teacher, and just a woman who shares her life. And she has gone through so many things too. And she says, when those moments happen, we tend to really grasp them, and we just like when we get mad, and when we get mad because we're sad, well, we crystallize, and I'm a champion in crystallization.
Yep.
And what you're saying is just, but you have to, okay, it's here, let go. My partner goes crazy because he keeps telling me that, and I'm just like grasping all the time. And yeah, so I guess it's, I don't know how long I will need to do that, but I guess it's getting easier and easier to just let it go. But it's really that. Let it come.
It will take you the perfect amount of time. I mean, and that's what I've realized with my struggle and my depression was the more I fought it, the more suicidal, the more depressed, the more anxious I was. As soon as my coach said, Neil, this is a pattern, it shifted. And I was able to start looking at it from a different angle, saying, oh my goodness, I've seen this with my father. I've seen this with my religion. I've seen this with other bosses. I've seen this with my spouse and my children. I've done it to these people. Oh my, I see the pattern. And then one day in my YouTube feed, the perfect meditation showed up and the perfect explanation for what was going on. I was like,
because you attracted, I guess, the help.
yes.
But you need the repetition to understand it's a pattern. Sometimes you need more repetitions. And it's like, currently I'm experiencing reminiscence, if I can word it like this. I just, because when I have those crises, I would say, in which I just cry and I feel like those depressed states.
Yep.
And then it goes back to my past, and I said, oh my gosh, I used to feel that way at 17 and at 8 and at 23. And I remember those moments, and I can finally identify, my gosh, it's not really the person, the people, the situation, the job. It's really something in me that gets triggered.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it didn't happen. I mean, 5 years ago. It's happening now. You see, after I don't know how many crises. So,
well, I'm a big fan of archaeology. And one of the things that they do is that the as I don't know, in Rome, let's say McDonald's comes in and decides they're going to build a new restaurant. Well, the first thing that they do is that they have to excavate a foundation. And every time, it seems like every time anybody does any excavation in Rome, they find a new layer of the old city underneath. And that's because in olden times, you would build and then an earthquake would happen. You would build and a landslide would happen. You would build and a fire would happen. You would build and, I don't know, a tornado would happen and blow stuff down. And so you would always just build on the old ruins, fill in the old ruins and build up. Now they're at a stage where those old ruins are important. And so the archaeologists are digging down deeper and deeper and deeper in order to learn more and more. And I bet that's the same way with personal development.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes, really illustrated it perfectly. Totally makes sense.
Because you don't see little kids doing introspection.
And I hope they won't have to. And I guess it's because also more and more of parents, and also, of course, you're becoming more and more aware of how you're behaving with your children, you know? And so I guess I hope, fingers crossed, that those children will get less trauma than we had. And but really, yeah.
So I believe that yes and no. One of my mentors said the challenge is the reason that we came. Again, we didn't come to flatline. We came to experience. And you only experience the good when you see the bad. You only experience up when you experience down. You can only experience happy when you've experienced sad.
Yes, the law of polarity. Mm-hmm. Contrast.
Yeah. So, I mean, but here's the thing. You and I have decided to become alert and aware. We're no longer just saying, oh, I'm depressed because, well, I'm depressed because the moon is full or the moon is empty and Saturn is in its regrowth and whatever.
Yes, true. Though in the spiritual community, it's all about, hey, how is your energy level today? Because you know there was an eclipse, and because now the planets are like this. And I came across a video with someone saying, yeah, the spiritual community might be the most depressed one because we're like, the moon.
Yeah. Well, so I grabbed this because I wrote my own horoscope
Mm,
exactly for that reason. Today is an auspicious day, a day of beginnings and decisions. Make choices and contracts on this auspicious day, and they will benefit everyone involved.
you know what makes me laugh is because I would be the one reading horoscopes when I would go to college at the time. And now I've become a fan of tarots and yes,
Hmm.
readings, things like that. But but I've kind of stopped listening because there was a time I would listen and listen and listen. And then until I realized, oh, I feel so good. I only have videos with good readings. Oh, I feel bad. Oh, I attract bad readings, you know? And I was like, okay, anyway, it's just
Yeah.
no, and it's generic. It's on the internet, and yeah, and and even
Mhm.
if you go see a psychic, and it's all in the present moment how you feel, and he's gonna see one part, one timeline, like we say, the one you're connected to according to your vibration. So
Yep.
really,
Yeah.
you that is going.
Well, and what's more, you're receiving those 40 bits of information. The psychic can be putting out the 15 million bits of information. You're only going to pick up on the stuff you want to hear, you vibrate with. And so, one of the things I like most that Abraham Hicks has said is if you're feeling bad, go take a nap. It's like resetting your computer or your cell phone. Your cell phone is glitching and things it's not working right. The software didn't update. Turn it off, turn it back on. All of a sudden things work just fine. Your computer is the same way. Your brain, come to find out, is the same way.
I think yes, you're absolutely right. And so taking a nap, I have baths. I love when I don't feel good, I just go and I would have baths and
Mhm.
with sea salt put in it
Yep.
and
Yep.
to clear the energy. But also, you know what? I think one underestimated or not is that you have to talk to a friend or do what we are doing because I
Yeah.
think when you go through that journey of healing, of course, you have your therapist. And generally, and this is the 3D world, you go to the therapist and you don't really talk about this anymore because even this in France, people are really ashamed. I don't know if it's in the world. You don't say you're seeing a therapist or a psychologist, psychiatrist, and yeah.
I'm seeing a therapist and I want to become one because I think more people need to see one.
Agree. And I have seen many, and I guess there are, and we have more and more people that do healing work. It's just exceptional, and it's not only, and there is an evolution here too, because it's not just the mind, psychology. It got well, the energetic world is really a sphere you have to explore because it's not just the mind and emotions. It goes so far beyond well, and
Yeah.
so really talking to someone, not just your therapist, but I think you have to be really careful regarding the people with whom you talk. And
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason that more people didn't talk about this stuff in generations past is because they would have been burned at the stake for heresy, witchcraft, stuff like this. Um, I'm learning about Qigong. It's been around for 4,000 years. The energy running through your system, yet herbalists at one time were called witches, and they were and people who believed that energy flowed through your body and that you could affect it with by touching different things, by adding different herbs to your body. Oh, that's evil, that's witchcraft. And so they were shunned or they were kicked out of society. um and what's fascinating, the teacher I'm listening to, he says, you know, you Americans, you're funny. You call us, the Chinese doctors, alternative medicine when we use acupuncture and herbal remedies and all of this other stuff. We've been doing it for 4,000 years. Who's the alternative?
yes, exactly.
You
And
guys are new. You don't know what you're doing.
no, and when you look at what drugs are made of, it's plants basically, and something natural. And anyway, I
Yeah.
um
So the fact that we are able to talk about it, and my interactions with you really have solved a lot of my depression because I didn't have friends close by. I didn't, my spouse is not interested in personal development at all. And so I literally had to join a group and find someone in another continent who was willing to talk to me about this stuff and support me in my journey.
But you see, also, I think that it's also good because your partner can see a lot of things, and sometimes someone that is not from your inner circle has a different set of eyes and can shed light on things you haven't seen either, and that your surrounding cannot see. And I think the
Yeah.
difficulty is that when you start that journey of personal development, well, what happens is that you realize, oh, my family, they are kind of the origin of the traumas. My friends, huh, I attracted them based on my traumas. Are they really my friend? So where does it leave it there? Who, and I have my coach, my therapist, but you're not going to keep your coach or your therapist for, I mean, a lifelong relationship, you know, because they have other people to help, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
And they
get,
generally cost a lot.
yes, too. And so it's really a challenge when you're on that journey. Who are you going to talk to about all of this? And also I get there is that solitude that comes at some point. It's really to me a point that you have to go through, and because to
Yeah.
readjust everything, because what you used to have as an environment previously got you stuck. Well, it led you to that point. You said, okay, I want to go even further, so you have to be grateful for what happened, but you have to reorganize everything. And here you have to look at the depression.
And you have to be willing to let go.
Yes.
Because I've lost a lot of friends. I had friends who uh, my religious community was my friend pool. And when I realized that my religion serves my religion. It doesn't serve my spirituality. It doesn't serve my personal growth to the extent that I needed it to. So I had to let go of philosophies, of practices, of comfort, of friends. And but as I did that, and don't get me wrong, and this is something I think our audience needs to know. You will walk through the dark night,
Mm. Or nights.
valley of the shadow of death, the dark night of the soul. That's what I was looking for.
Yes.
You will walk through the dark night of the soul, but on the other side, you will meet a Delphine or a Neil.
Yes.
You will meet somebody who will continue on with you because ultimately you never were alone. And so you just needed to you were going through that phase where you were changing your vibration and you had to let go of one in order to gain the other.
And just before we started our video today, I saw a reel on Instagram and about making space for the new. The person showed like a glass with all those pens and pencil, and she showed something. Yes, but you want to have something to fit in it. I don't have it like a jewel. That's the new life you want, but
Yep.
oh, so you have to let go of everything. And so she takes that. Yeah, this is the version of you you're not anymore. Those are the friends that are not really your friends. Things she goes on that you don't want. And until it's like, and you have like, let's say 4 of them, and then you have the space and room for what you have, what you really, really want, you know? So I found that video really genius, you know? So
That actually, well, one of the first books that you and I read together, You Were Born Rich, The Law of the Vacuum. The universe hates a vacuum. So if you need a new couch, or if you've decided it's time to get a new couch, get rid of the old one. You've created a vacuum. All of a sudden, you're going to find a way to replace that couch.
and to finish, I would even say that works with relationships because at some point we attract the same person over and over again. And when you start, okay, no, I don't want that type of relationship. No, this one either. And you start, but this is how we get attracted to my partner. So I attracted new friends, my partner, because I set boundaries. And this is what I want. This is what I don't want anymore. You see?
Yep.
So
You figured out what you wanted.
exactly. You taste and say, not good. And
Yeah.
but you cannot do that until you know what you like and what you don't like. So first you have to figure out by yourself, I like this, and then you meet the person. Oh, do you like this? No. Okay. And some things are compatible, of course, but others, no. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's another analogy that I really like. You learn to sing a duet. Are you in harmony with this person? Because you're supposed to both be singing different notes,
Exactly.
but do they work well together or do they not work well together? And when you change your song, you will always find somebody else who's willing to sing that song with you.
Mhm.
But there is that time when you're not singing the song of the friends around you, and you haven't yet found the person who is singing the song you want to sing.
Exactly. So we need time. And accept that we need
Be
time.
patient with yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And on that, I think we can say we'll be back in 2 weeks, I guess.
2 weeks, give or take.
Yes,
We'll be very patient with ourselves.
absolute patience. Well, thank you, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Delphine.